This is called Better Conversations. And let me tell you a little bit about this. At some points in your life, some people will say, you know, you need to learn some skills so you can have better conversations with people. I had to work with a school that really, the administrator really struggled with being able to give the teachers a voice and to be able to listen to people. And so that led me to, what can we do now? Because, you know, when people have been stuck in their ways for a while, it's hard to learn anything new. So we worked on it, and I asked her, I said, do you want me to just tell you how it is, or do you want me to blow some fluff? And she says, just tell me how it is. The school survey was awful. She needed some skills. I said, okay, read this book, and then we'll talk. And so that led us to start a whole conversation about how you approach people and how you have conversations with people. As an end result, after reading this book, I wasn't kidding. I mean, this really helped me with my family, with being able to approach and coach others. It helped in everything I do. I've got an 88-year-old father, and you know, he's sharp as a tack, but physically his body's failing a little bit just because he's older. And it helped me deal with him, just because sometimes you say things and you don't think it's insensitive, but it comes out that way. So it should really help. Now, you did the pre-assessment. We've seen this quote already, okay? So it's all about, you know, it's the best thing that we can do as professionals, to learn to be able to talk with people, to coach people, to talk with your coworkers, parents, students, families, everyone. It will help lower your stress at home. It will help lower your stress in the grocery store, everywhere that you go. So that's important to know. 3 session objectives that we have. The stages of the improvement cycle, the difference between explicit and tacit knowledge, and discovering better habits. Now, that reminds me, one person from every table, count your people and come on up here so I can give you a handout. Okay, here. I'm gonna give you half of them. You can give some away too. So, okay, she's got a good stack there. Here you go. You can give some away also. Okay, here's some more over here. Okay, now, you know, you can always take notes on the back. I'm just giving this to you so you'll have a hard copy, and then you can also write on it. So the improvement cycle, that's really good to know. You've got to identify a goal, and guys, you're looking from within on this goal. You're not looking out at other people. You're looking at yourself. And so you're going to identify a goal as we move through here. You're going to learn a new habit, and you're going to be figuring out how you can keep that improvement going and monitor your progress as you move through, okay? So let's say identify a goal. My goal is, or was, when I got frustrated, I would start talking really, really fast. And it didn't matter if people were following me or not, I just had to talk, okay? So identify a goal. Slow down, think before you talk, like your parents always told you to do. Take a deep breath, all that. So I had to learn a new habit. And I had to figure out how I was going to be able to do that. And then once I did, I had to chart my improvement, basically. I had to take notes on myself. And once you start doing that, you can figure out, oh, this is cool. I don't know about you guys, but do you all ever ask questions? You don't wait very long, and then you answer your own question? Yeah. Yeah. So that's one of my things I work on too. And then the other one is cutting people off. I don't know if you all do that, but they start talking and your brain starts moving and then you cut them off. Yeah, because you just have to say it. So those are like personal goals that you're working on. That's kind of what we're talking about. So this is all about you. And it's really cool because it makes people a better person. So this is your reflective sheet that you have. And then basically what you do is you look at this part, and you could list your categories on the Likert scale of, does that fit you or not? And then you're kind of setting a baseline. Later on, maybe next month, you would revisit this and say, have I improved? Maybe that's one of the goals that you have. So let's take 2 minutes and just go through and actually chart where you are on these things. So these are communication profiles. And so once you do this, you can kind of start saying, okay, this may be a goal for me. I had some books out in the car, and Doug just brought them in. So we'll see how many we have.
How much are they on? $28 on mine. We're having a special today. $17.95. $18 carrying fee. Yeah, add that to the total price, and they can be yours for near $46.50.
How 27? Yeah. Okay. So if somebody count, how many people do we have?
22.
Okay, everybody can get a book. So send somebody over there from your table and get your books.
I don't take plastic.
Yeah. Okay. Does everybody have one? Oh, I just love the way that works. Yeah. Okay, write your name in there so you all have it. All right, now, for the book, very quickly, I'm just going to skim the topics of the book, okay? You can take the book and you can look at it. It's an easy read, and you can go through, and you'll find out that, okay, I need to maybe flag and tag this section. I need to work here, but it's really cool. Jim Knight actually works with the Kansas Strategic Learning Center. And so, like you all have heard of Kansas Learning Strategies. And I'm a professional developer for Kansas Learning Strategies. And so I often go to his seminars. He does a great job. He's all about instructional coaching. All right, so we're going to talk about identifying the goal. Once you decide of what you're going to do, you kind of have to list it, make a list, so that you can check back on it. And then decide how often are you going to check in on yourself to see if you do this. If you actually did something like this paper right here and put it in the car, every time you get in the car, have I done that? How did I do this week? Just kind of check on yourself. All right, so this section, it's all about, connecting, finding common grounds with people, listening, being able to put your technology down so that you can actually look at people and listen to them. It helps us reach everyone, from kids to elderly. So what matters? We talked about this before. Adult behavior, effectiveness, doing the easiest thing first, and instruction. Actually giving instruction to where people can realize what you're telling them to do. MTSS, we talked about the triangle earlier. MTSS, as you go up in the tiers, it gets a little bit more expensive, it gets a little bit more individualized, and it's not for everybody. Everybody's at the bottom, but some people need a little bit extra. So the way I always explain this to people is, if you're looking at the triangle, if there's a fire alarm in school, beep, 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 fire alarm. Class, get in line. Most people will get in line. A few people need to be told where to stand. Patty, get behind Sally. Sally, I want you to lead out, okay? And then some folks, you may have to grab them by hand and say, Johnny, let's go. Okay, so that's your pyramid of how you're doing a fire alarm. MTSS is the overarching umbrella which covers social emotional, academic, behavioral, mental health, everything that we do. So social emotional learning. Do you all have social emotional learning in your schools? If you don't, there are all kinds of free curriculum out there. Harmony, Sanford Harmony is a great curriculum for social emotional learning. It's free. They have training on their website. But you do need to teach skills every day, and it may be one skill a week. So you teach that one skill and you revisit it throughout the week. Then you ask, how did we do on that? You may want to carry it on for another week or teach another skill next week. There's also Boys Town skills that are on the internet that are really, really good. Those skills are scripts. So it's like scripts that would be on one hand. How to respond if somebody tells you no. And you look at them, you say okay, you take these actions. But those scripts are online as well, and teaching people how to do things. That's what we're talking about. So think about graphic organizers. That's another skill. Graphic organizer is one thing, teaching it is another. And to be able to say it so they can do it and remember it and anchor it to something that's going on in their head so they'll remember it. Your 4 questions: if you can predict it, you can prevent it, how are you going to maintain it, and then figure out what's working. This quote is in the book. It's on page 4. Very good quote. Communication is the heart of everything educators do. Our schools are only as good as the conversations within them. Okay? So you can have great people working in a school, but it's only great when you work together. So remember my kids on the elliptical. When they were together, they made it happen. One kid couldn't do it, but together it worked. So if you all work together with your group at school, that's very positive. So this is where it really gets kind of interesting. This is that tacit and explicit. Does anyone know right now what the difference is? And could you explain it without looking at your phone or the internet or Googling it? All right, so this is really, I had to Google it and look at it, and I read it, and it still didn't make sense, so I Googled more. So what it is the tacit knowledge. That's the personal knowledge. If you were to say, I know how to put gas in my car, okay? Nowadays, cars are a little bit different. You got to pull a plug or lift a lever or just go to the back and unscrew or whatever it may be. But that's tacit knowledge. You know how to do what you're talking about. Sometimes it's hard to explain, but if you've got it in your head, you can work your way around the words. Explicit knowledge is how you explain without any fluff the exact process. So 2 + 2 is 4. I've got these 2 fingers, I've got these 2 fingers, I add them together, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? Very concrete language. So that's the difference. And then can you bring in what you know and have experienced into your explicit language? Because if you can, people can almost see it. And then they can see it happen. So thinking about little people, thinking about young parents, thinking about elderly, thinking about husbands or wives at home, thinking about any of that, your own personal kids. If you actually can help people understand what's in your head and what you want to share, then you aren't frustrated, they aren't frustrated, and all's learning something. This is one of those Kansas learning strategies, and I know you can't read it, but what it is, it's a unit organizer. And so what you're doing is you're pulling from better conversations, and then it's about looking at your boundaries, and then by embracing beliefs, by adopting habits, by recognizing and internalizing difference with knowledge, okay? So then, and by translating ideas in reality, by learning. So, and then it tells you more about it. These kind of graphic organizers help kids a lot, but you have to explain it, and they have to be able to internalize it and be able to use the information and be able to see how it works. Once they experiment with it and see how things work, then they can move forward. So think of manipulatives. We've all used manipulatives in some way at all grade levels. Once the kids play with things, if it's blocks to time clocks, to things for chemistry, anything, once they can do a hands-on approach, and if they can explain to someone what they did, they've got it. That's why they always said, if you're a peer tutor and you can talk through things, it makes it so you understand it better. So, peer conversations, great conversations, but you got to teach them how. Once again, everything has that teaching component. So don't assume anything. Always go back to the teaching component. Keep it simple, keep it easy, but go back to that. Let me model. The I do, we do, you do approach works really well. So these beliefs in this book. We've got conversations as partners, they're equals. What this means is that you're not going to just take over the conversation. you're going to be opening to hear others. You're going to be open to listen. And you got to make yourself available and vulnerable. And so you want to let somebody else talk with you. I don't know about you guys, but have you ever been in a room of people that seem to know more than you do? And you just don't think you have anything to add. You do, because if you can even get them to clarify, then they will be able to help your understanding, and you have helped them because they didn't know they needed to clarify. Okay? So everybody's working together on this, but you got to set the stage for it to happen. So hear what others have to say. Don't surround yourself with yes people all the time. That's not any good. You like questions. You like to bat things back and forth. That's really helpful. Habits that distract you from paying attention. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes that it could be your phone or whatever. And so just remember, always turn it down. Clearing your mind, taking that breath. And sometimes, guys, silence is awful. I don't know if you all have ever had that, but sometimes silence is really hard to handle. But silence is an okay thing. And, you know, we've been in seminars before. I mean, I go to seminars all the time and sit through, and the presenter may ask something, and she's like, I was a teacher, I can wait all day. And just let it go. And then that allows people think time. Now, if you don't have a lot of time, like if you're in charge and it's not really one of those, you know, I put it out there, you bat it back, and let's talk like that. If you don't have a lot of time, you may have to do something else. But try to have that two-way conversation. Make yourself available to be able to have people talk to you. Believe people should have a lot of autonomy. Okay, so what does that mean to you? You guys explain to me. What does that mean to you?
Would this be like accepting that other people don't have the same backgrounds or belief sets?
Okay, all right. What else? How about from over there on that side of the room?
The second sentence is control leads to compliance. The autonomy leads to engagement. You know, you just comply, really, if you don't have a dog. I mean, if you don't have any kind of belief in it, no kind of say so, you just do it because basically you're told to.
Okay. Somebody else tell me something else. Middle of the room. Say it one more time. Okay, okay. So it's mutual decision making. We would want to try to encourage that people have conversations together. Yesterday, I was in a district and we were working on a district RTI plan. And not everyone saw the same view of what we wanted. And so some people gave a little, some people gave up a little on the other end. And to keep a mutual ground, I told them, I said, I'll do the work. You all design it, I'll do it. That way, it's not one person's job. It's their input makes it all happen. Because, like you said, people see things in a different way.
Shared ownership.
Shared ownership, yes. Don't judge others. So Jim Knight says, list 3 things you can do you can do to be non-judgmental. Okay? So you don't want to be judgmental. People don't want you to look at them and say, no, that's wrong. Or, if I were you, I'd do it this way. Because people have reasons for everything that they do. Even those kids with behavior issues. They have reasons why they're doing the behavior. You just don't know what it is yet. But if you dig in, you'll figure it out. So listen without assumptions. Begin to let go of the desire to give unsolicited advice. You know, I'd hate to be in a grocery store line, need to lose about 10 pounds. Somebody looked at my donuts and said, you think you really need those? I mean, you know, so that would be unsolicited advice. Practice letting go of having to be right. We're not right all the time, and we don't have to be right all the time. Being flexible is really a good thing. Conversations should be back and forth. So back and forth dialogue, making sure that everybody gets a chance. But sometimes this is really hard. Doug and I were talking about this earlier, and he was talking about a conversation that he had with someone. You know, did you have a good day? Yes. What'd you learn today? Nothing. You know, and so there was very small conversation. Make sure that those open-ended questions are in there to encourage discussion. Conversations should be life-giving. This really hit me. Some are life-draining. So I don't know if you all know what I'm talking about when I'm saying that. But life-giving is engaging, it's fun, it's exciting, it's you kind of get encouraged and ready to roll. Life-draining is like, oh God, now I need to go take a nap. And so life-giving conversations, it increases your energy. Being a little stressful, stress can be positive and negative. A little stress in the positive format will make you achieve things. So that improvement cycle, look back at your list and look at those goals that you had circled and decide, what could I work on? So we're trying to move them towards a 10. And if you actually had something that you could list as an action step for one, you know, that would be something, just kind of write it down. So I'm looking at the list. I'm fully present in all conversations. I'm one of those people that you would consider an active thinker. Some people may say ADHD. Yeah. So if you've got that active brain and it never stops, it just keeps going. Sometimes people are talking and you're thinking of that next thing before they even stop the last sentence. Yeah, and so, you know, that's something that I'm working on. But you've got to kind of figure out, okay, so how do you work on that? Where do you start? And so that's where you turn the phone down, you look at people, you may nod. Nodding is good. You could even start to summarize people's thoughts. So, I hear you say, and then say it back to them. So that's kind of where we're going with this, is you're looking at your own conversation and what you're doing. Now, do any of you guys teach high school in here? Okay. So high school kids, this works really well with, is repeating what they say. High school, middle school, because that's where you're looking and you're saying, okay, so I see that frustrates you. And then you start to talk. 4 simple strategies to becoming a better listener. Commit to really listen. Put the phone down. Pause before you speak. Don't interrupt. Let them talk. Partner is the speaker. The partner is the speaker. Okay? So let them talk, hear them out. Now, if you've got one of those active brains and you're thinking, oh, that's going to be so hard to do, you just keep repeating in your head what they're saying. So I hear her saying that she's frustrated, or I hear her saying that math is difficult today. So you keep repeating it, and then when that sentence is finished, then you use that reflective language and say that back. So questions that you would say. A great conversationalist lets other people have the conversation. Is listening something that you can feel as much as you see? Okay, so what is it? Is listening something that you can see? Can you tell if somebody's listening? Yeah? What does an active listener look like? Just a talk out. Tell me. Okay, hold on, one at a time. Go. Eye contact. Eye contact. Active listener. What else? You got something? What does?
Nodding your head.
Nodding your head.
Facial expressions.
Okay. Body language. Okay, okay. So those are that C. Remember that C acronym? What does S stand for? Sound. Sound of your voice. E. Expression. E. Good. Okay. So using those things as well. Fostering dialogue. Dialogue is when we are actually having that two people conversation. We're talking back and forth. All members are sharing what they're thinking. They have time to share. This is not a great example of having a dialogue with me standing up here and you all not talking. If I give you time to talk and everybody at your table got to share a little bit, that would be an example. Do you have any conversations with students or parents like after school or before school? Or when you call them on the phone? Okay? Are you the only one talking? All right. Give them a chance to answer an open-ended conversation, an open-ended question. And that will be the step to make this relationship start happening. The old saying goes that two heads are better than one. Sometimes people don't want to harness all that energy around them. Maybe it's a feeling of losing power or losing control. You just don't know. But if everybody worked together, then you can embrace what you learn. You can embrace the conversation. You can have an amazing result. What if you were working with coworkers or parents or administration, whoever it is, and you created an action plan together? And then you said, okay, who's going to do what? If everybody had a little skin in the game and had something to do, then your team is going to go a long ways. So it couldn't be just like yesterday, like you just make the form for us. It can't be that way, because if I were to make a form for someone, they are not going to buy into it. But if they had voice in what it looks like, and then we pulled it together, and then the next step is we set another meeting and we said, okay, so we're going to pull this form together and you guys can review it, edit it, and then we'll take it back for revisions. Okay? So that way everybody buys in. As an end result, we set a timeline and said, when are we going to roll out a new form for the district? And they said, Let's do it by next year, by the next school year. So that gave us a good timeline to meet once a month, to make revisions, to give everybody voice, and you have to have all the schools there. And so that was really important, but we did. We got everybody involved, and as an end result, they will all buy in. If we had left someone out, they wouldn't buy into a new product because they had no voice. They'd say, this is crazy, it's too busy. It's not gonna fit our needs. But if they're involved in the conversations, it'll happen. Move beyond assumptions. Consider others' thoughts and feelings. Clarify the meaning of words and concepts. Provide relative information. Identify your own false assumptions. Use stories and analogies. Stories are good. That's that tacit knowledge coming back in, because if you can tell a story about something, you've either heard it or experienced it, okay? And that'll help pull people in. False assumptions. Guys, don't ever assume anything. I mean, you can't assume because people don't know. And you don't know what they don't know. And you don't know what you don't know. So don't ever assume. Just say, let's check into that, or everybody do your homework, come back, we'll talk again in a week. Sometimes we assume things about the kids, the families that we work with. It may be an incorrect assumption, so be open to be wrong. You got to be open to that. Sometimes you got to have a balance. Sometimes you listen with empathy, understanding, open yourself to new ideas. Maybe I wasn't looking at that correctly. And if you're wrong, just admit it. It's just so much easier. Anybody watch the news about Southwest Airlines? And you know, the guy, I mean, I was very impressed. He said, we messed up. And that takes a lot to admit fault. Sometimes with us, the people that we work with, I can tell you time after time I messed up in education. And I learned something from it. My first job was a PE teacher. And so I was teaching PE. I had a bunch of kindergartners in there. We were having so much fun. We were in the gym. You know how the gyms had that big circle in the middle for ball games? Well, we were running around the circle, and I told them, I said, okay guys, I'm gonna clap my hands and everybody turn around and go the other way. And I clapped my hands, half of them turned around, half of them didn't. So they all ran into each other. And then we cried for a while. But I learned something after that. Those kids were way too young, and that was way too fast of an activity. So you learn. And you know, sometimes sarcasm, it'll get you in a bad way too. I mean, what was I doing? One day, you know, I was teaching a group of kids, and I said, oh, you poor thing. And it wasn't meant bad. It really wasn't. But my principal and I had to have a little conversation after I said that, because I actually offended a child, and the child went home and said that I had called him poor. And you know, I had to admit fault. But those are part of your experiences that you learn from. And so, you know, I learned that we don't do that. So it is what it is. People do mess up from time to time. Own it, make it right, and then move forward and try not to make the same mistake twice. Be curious. When you ask questions, questions are a good thing. But you have to ask questions not to offend anyone. You've got to be very, very careful when you ask questions. Don't ask questions that you already know the answers to, because then they're just trying to see if you're trying to catch them. So, but I say that, and I'm sitting here thinking, well, in the educational realm, you may know the answers to those questions, but you have to ask the kids the questions. I'm kind of talking more in general terms when I'm saying that. Unhelpful questions that you try to stump people or you anger them. That's kind of what I'm talking about. Good questions give the conversation partner an equal playing field. So again, about those open and closed questions, here's one about academics. What's the new reading program that we're using? What reading page are we on? And then, what do you think about this reading program? Or what do you think about the chapter that we're reading right now? Okay, so that's, you're asking questions, you're going to get a response, but depending on what you're after, do you want to know what somebody knows, or do you just want to know if they're paying attention? So when leading a workshop, when talking with others, when leading a PLC, when leading an ARC meeting, use those open-ended questions. Non-judgmental. So this is asking better questions. This is under that category. So being non-judgmental, don't give advice. People don't want to know, what you think about that. Like if you had a teenage kid that came in and said, I broke up with my girlfriend. They don't want to hear all about your life and yeah, I had a boyfriend or a girlfriend once and this is what happened to me and all that. They don't need to hear all that. But you can reflect that breakups are hard. Okay? A kiddo maybe had a pet that died. And that's hard, that's traumatic. And so you'd want to be empathetic. You would want to let them know that that is a very difficult thing. Don't just pat people on the back and say, oh, it'll be okay, you'll grow out of it. Because that might not be okay in their world. So listen, become a good listener, shake your head, be open with the body language. That is absolutely 100% correct, all those things that you all said earlier. Connecting, we talked about this a little bit earlier. You've got those bids where people are opening a door for conversation. You either close the door or you keep it open and enter into a relationship and a conversation with someone, okay? You turn toward them and have a conversation. You turn away and close the door, or you offend them and anger them. Emotional connections, this is really hard. I mean, it is. It's hard. It's sometimes it's hard to share good things. Sometimes it's hard to be present. Sometimes it's hard to be persistent, to keep seeing the good things when there's not a lot of good. Sometimes it's difficult. Try not to just allow the negativity to take over. Be a witness to the good. So let me see if this next one. Yeah, be a witness to the good. So this is talking about bottom up and top down. Bottom up is when you notice things that you can't help from noticing, like the smell of you walk into someone's house and they're cooking cookies. You would smell it and you would say something about it because you can't help from noticing. Top down is when you say something and people are just really appreciative that you said it, because you didn't have to say anything nice, but you did. You went out of your way to appreciate something. That's what gets noticed the most. Use direct, specific, non-attributive comments. So this one is, I appreciate your help. I noticed that he's responding positively. 3 kids have told me that. So just using a different way to let people know that you're noticing things helps. And if people think that you are noticing what they're doing, it cheers them up. From talking with elderly people, if people notice that, you walk in and you say, hey, that really looks good on you. I love that shirt. It fits really well. They like things like that because there's not a lot of positives being said. And so if you can say something and make it specific enough that the person, like if it's a shirt comment and the person kind of, changes, pulls their shirt down and makes it all, that's me, I'm cool today. I mean, that's really neat. But if you didn't have to say that, so that's kind of what I'm talking about. If you were to go home, there was one of those, that ratio of interactions. You all have heard about that, 4 to 1 positives? Anybody, you all have heard that? Okay. That actually came from marriage and family therapy. And so if you actually had 4 to 1 positives, now think about it in your own home or with your own family, do you give enough positives? And so if you can really up those, that will make a difference, a ton of difference in your life. It really will. And the people that you're saying the positives to, they will all of a sudden start giving you positives back. And so it takes the negative out of, the life stressors and puts a few little good moments in there. So try to look at those 4 to 1 positives. So 4 positives to 1 negative. If you say something negative, just kind of remember in the back of your head, okay, I need to start watching for good things. And then let's start saying some good things. That will make a huge difference in life in general. Kids, family, young people, parents, old people. That'll make a big difference. Growth fixed mindset. So the growth fixed mindset is, that's where we have to learn to get past, it's all one way. We've got to get past it. So we learn to accept that things can evolve and things can change and things can move forward. And what if you were to highlight the positives and let's see, I'm looking for a word here, highlight the positive expectations of people and raise the expectations, make them high. That's that growth mindset. Let people think that the possibilities are there. I can work towards that. So this one's all about finding ground. Let's see if you all noticed or not, I changed the backgrounds according to the different sections I'm on here. So finding common ground, we've got to make sure that we're looking for good conversations and not just surrounding yourself with people that are going to do what you want to do. So you want to be able to challenge your thinking some and not just have those yes men around. This one is the perceptual errors. How does it feel when you realize that some people can do no wrong, whereas others, no matter what they do, you just can't please them? Anybody ever been around that kind of person? Yeah. And yeah, I mean, So you've just got to look at life and, let's see past it. Let's work with what we've got. Let's try to put in those 4 to 1s, the positives to negatives. Think about, have you ever been stereotyped? What's it feel like? That microaggression, I don't know if you all have ever looked into that, but that's an interesting thing to Google if you wanted to look at it. And microaggression, it happens in the workplace, to schools, to everywhere. But it talks about how people are looking at people and saying certain things, like, oh, a girl can't do that, or that's not for a boy. So think about just how you present things and try not to stereotype. Anybody work with a set of twins? Okay. So with twins, make sure that you don't say, here comes the twins. You say, here comes Patty and Pam, or whoever. Because you don't want to stereotype. You don't want to lock them into one particular grouping. The I care strategy works really, really well. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a break here in just a minute, so hang in there. I care. So when you're talking to people and you're thinking about finding common ground, just use this acronym. That works out really well. Can somebody find that in the book and tell me what page it's on? I care strategy, finding common, it's in the finding common ground. $141. So very simply, you would look at interest, convictions, activities, roles, experiences. And if you can find anything in there that you have in common with some other people, that really helps. One of the most challenging kiddos that I worked with, he was little, he was in elementary school, but no one could get this kiddo to do anything. And so I decided we were going to be friends. And we started being friends, and you know how sometimes you have to create a motivator for kids. And so we said, okay, so what would motivate you? What would make you do the things that we need you to do in reading class? I don't know. We batted it around for a couple days. He says, you really want to know? And I said, yeah. He said, I've got a rabbit at my house. He said, if you will come over and play with my rabbit with me, then I'll do what you want me to do. I said, okay. You do it, and what we ended up doing is putting him on one of those little 5x5 squares where you put a sticker on every day. I said, when you get to 25, let me know and I'll be over. And we'll have some animal time. And sure enough, that's what I did. And went over and played with his rabbit, and he was just excited as he could be. Because that was what meant a lot to him. He lived kind of out by himself. Not, no one lived around in walking distance. So it was one of those things that he didn't have a lot, the parent. Well, and it wasn't even a parent, it was a grandparent. So he didn't have anybody to play with. So that was what we did. And then, 25 more days, we did it again. So whatever it takes. But sometimes you've got to figure that out. But you won't figure it out until you start deciding what you have in common. So that's what we did, is I would always share pictures of my animals, just on my phone, and I'd share pictures with kids, and they thought it was really cool. One of the animals was a English Mastiff. Anybody ever had an English Mastiff? They're huge dogs. It was about a 200-pound dog. But just gentle as could be. But they were always amazed because, you know, a dog's foot is as big as your hand. And it was like, wow, yeah. So using common words to unite. Don't use I. Try not to use but. So try to substitute in we's and yeses and ands for but. Don't use that. Exactly, I understand, wow, geez, gosh, that's amazing. So have that, you know, those words in your head so you can just pull them out whenever you need to respond. Words that communicate hope, love, family, team, together, thank you. If someone was gone, tell them that you miss them. You're glad they're here. So just try to pull it back in when you finally see them, they come to school. I'm glad you're here. I really miss you. And then give them hope of what we can do the next day that they're there. Using words to unite, avoid words that divide. And so, you know, you're trying not to use the sarcasm, the whining, or the nagging, or the gossiping, and things like that. Try to use words that connect people together. And so then we would go back to your words, your yes words, your positive words, your hope words. Have you ever been angry? Y'all ever been angry? Just a little bit? Yeah. Can you describe what angry feels like? What's angry feel like? Somebody give me a word. It's a what?
It's the color red, was a feeling.
Okay, a color of red. All right. What? Strong emotions. Okay, almost overwhelming. Don't know what to do next. What? Chaos, yes. Sometimes, you know, you have all cylinders firing. I mean, and you don't know which one to pull in. Yeah. So all of those angry feelings, can you imagine having an angry feeling and not having anyone to be able to talk to? That would be difficult. A lot of the parents or the kids may have this feeling. And so that's where sometimes you got to make yourself vulnerable and don't take it personal. When they're angry, you're right, it's that red feeling, it's that hot button. Can kids tell if they can get you angry?
Oh, yeah, they can feed on it.
Uh-huh, they do. And it spreads like wildfire, doesn't it? Yeah. Yes, yes. It's like a forest fire. Okay, so think about it. You've got to breathe. Don't take things personally. Don't let people get your goat. There's no reason to go there. So this strategy really does help. Name it, reframe it, tame it. That does help with these feelings. Okay? And if you can even teach people how to name it, reframe it, tame it, that will help them as well. Relationships are built on trust. We've talked about this. Character, reliability, stewardship, you know, giving credit to people, recognizing the good things that they do. So we get back to this whole tacit knowledge, explicit knowledge, talking about how you feel, what happens when you do a particular movement or an activity, explaining it to others. That modeling, the I do, we do, you do, helps a whole lot. And then just think, if you were to model and use positive language, as in, we can do this. And then you couple that with some feedback at the end with here's what was really positive about this whole experience. I mean, just imagine how far you would come in a relationship. 10 Habits of Better Conversationalists. This just lists the habits that are in the book, just so you know, and there's 10 of them. Controlled toxic emotions. We didn't really talk about that yet. But that's when those, you say things and it really gets under people's skin. So you have to be very, very careful with that type of language. So now we go back to you. Have you identified a goal? So this goal of yours, let's say the action plan due date is spring break. So how many weeks do you have till spring break? Yeah, 6 or 7 weeks? Okay, 6, 7, 8 weeks. All right. So if you were going to create a new habit for yourself, what would it be? Talk at your tables just a little bit. Write something down, because if you write it, you buy into doing it. Okay, now real quick, just because we're going to run out of time, can 3 people tell me what they are going to try to change or do, a new habit between now and spring break? What are you going to work on? You got one?
Feeling my emotions.
You're going to work on your emotions?
Yep.
Okay. Can you tell me how you're going to do that?
I don't know because usually my face says it all. So I got to work on that.
Okay. You're going to work on her emotions, the outward appearance. Okay. So one other person, or 2 other people actually. Somebody from over here.
I have the same one, that I need to be and, have more control over my emotions.
Okay, because your face tells it all.
Well, no, it's more like I just I think about my adult children when I was looking at that, and I just
Yeah.
need to have more self-control. Not when I get angry or when I get sad,
Right.
whatever, I'm just real emotional
Yeah.
overall.
Okay.
Control that.
Okay. So that breathing technique, yes. Okay.
Taking a break and walking outside.
Okay. All right.
Because of that, what you said about the interruption part, my brain's going, my fixed head.
Okay.
Already have another plan.
Uh-huh.
Plans are completed, so, definitely that is like some of the director of our program, and so I can see myself wanting to interject too quickly
Uh-huh.
before they give me
Okay.
the feedback.
Okay. So a little wait time. Okay. All right. One person over there. No, you're looking past him. You're right there. Yeah.
Oh, gosh. This whole thing is like calling my name. Keep my mouth shut and not take my 2 cents in.
Okay.
That is just something I have always, my daughter bought a house, and she's like, Mom, what do you think about that paint? I'm like, oh, that is the ugliest. I'm gonna be nicer.
Okay. Well, you can still give your opinion. You just have to, yes, reframe it a little bit. Yeah. Okay. And it's all that framing technique, guys. You can say all kinds of things. It's just how you frame it. Yeah. Okay, this is good. So once you get the PowerPoint, I'll drop it in to our folder. On this resource right here, this is actually, it's like a book review. So this will be really cool because you can look at it. And then you do have a post-assessment to do, so I want you to do the post-assessment. On the post-assessment, I want you to make a comment about what you're going to buy in to do before spring break. And you just never know. I may email you and say, did you do it?